It is noon on YouTube, but it is 5 o'clock somewhere, which means, of course, the bar is open. It is Fantasy Football Happy Hour. I am your faithful bartender, Matthew Berry, and joining me today on the show, this guy's story is incredible. You know him. His name's Brandon Carney, but you know him as BenchwarmerBran. Look at him right there, wearing a hat so you can't tell that he's bald, like I am.
The secret's out.
And you actively went bald, which I think is a bold choice. Like, my guys are jumping off the ship. They're daring me to fire them before they quit on me. But you actively went bald. If anyone sees your videos, so incredible. You have 1 million followers on TikTok. You have 500,000 on Instagram. You have 600,000 on YouTube. And yet you are not attractive at all. That's what I think is really impressive. Most of the people I see with large
My mom would
followings,
disagree.
I don't know that she would. Everyone loves their child. But, I'm just saying, not everyone, if she's being honest, Brandon, what she would say is you were smart and you were funny. But
listen,
but
it speaks more to my ability to be able to get to this point while being, a 7 out of 10 rather than a 9.
That is, Damian Vagona says, no way, top tier skits on TikTok. This guy is great. All caps. He's screaming it from the rooftops. People do love you.
Preach, Damian.
They really do love you. I don't know if they relate to the fact that you did actively go bald, that you don't seem particularly athletic, but they do seem to really relate to you in a way that is incredible. All jokes aside, what you've accomplished. You were a production assistant, a PA at ESPN. Which, when you're a PA, for the people who don't know, when you are a production assistant, you are Xeroxing copies, you are delivering scripts, you are getting lunch sometimes, you are a grunt, you are the lowest of the low. And I can say this because I was a production assistant on many shows. I've talked about this before. My very first job when I moved to Hollywood out of Syracuse, go Cuse, by the way, out of Syracuse, was I became a production assistant for the George Carlin show on Fox, which meant I was George Carlin's assistant for a year. So you went from being a production assistant, a gopher, a runner, if you will, to now over 2 million followers on social media. Tell me real quick, as Martin's World says, each day the guests keep getting better and better. I appreciate that, Martin's World. I'm going to get Lance to answer the question real quickly, but Brandon, I didn't want to do a show. I'm just going to, real quickly, as we're doing Happy Hour and we're launching a new version of Happy Hour, and we'll get Jay in here, and Connor and Lawrence will be back as well, and all the faces you know and love, but I'm trying to get a bunch of different voices and mix it up for you guys and not just do the same old typical. There's a lot of fantasy podcasts out there, and a lot of them are great. They do great work. No shade, but I feel like you see a lot of the same faces as well. So upcoming guests real quickly. Tomorrow we've got Adam Levitan, who I think is fantastic, does an absolutely great job over there at ETR. And then on Thursday, Scott Turner, the former offensive coordinator of the Commanders, former offensive coordinator of the Las Vegas Raiders, son of Norv, former passing game coordinator for the Jets and many NFL teams. Scott Turner is going to come by on Thursday and break everything down for us. So I'm very excited about the guests. But let's start with you, Benchwarmer How do you go from being a guy getting scripts to over 2 million followers on social media?
Yeah, no, this is not where I thought I would end up by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, I grew up messing around with like YouTube and content and stuff like that. But how did I go from a PA to here? I mean, it was really like I knew I wanted to do sports media in college, dating all the way back to probably high school, even middle school. I knew I wanted to do something in sports. So I went that route. I tried to do like the anchor reporter thing in college, and then you need a job out of college, right? So eventually I end up as a PA at ESPN, just happy to work in sports in general. And it really came when COVID hit, and they were like, hey, nobody knew what was happening with sports, so ESPN was basically like, look, we got to keep all these grunt PAs employed because sports could come back tomorrow and we need people to work on them. We have no idea what's going to happen. Essentially what that left me with was like 4 to 5 months of time to do whatever I wanted to do because we didn't actually have any work, and we were lucky enough to still be being paid full time at that point. So I'm just like, okay, how am I gonna fill my time? And I missed being on camera, and TikTok was starting to like pop off at that point. Everybody's locked up in their house, everybody's scrolling social media, and I was like, I have the skill set to do this. Like, I know how to be funny. I know how to be on camera. I know how to edit, maybe most importantly. So I kind of just meshed all those skills. I was like, honestly, not doing something with that combination of skills would be a waste of an opportunity, especially with the time I've been granted. And TikTok, with the way the algorithms worked at that point and still work, is like, as long as you're making good stuff, you don't really need a following to blow up. And then you will gain the following after that. But it used to be like old days of YouTube. You kind of needed to like grind it out and like, build up a small audience, and then you get the bigger audience and whatever. TikTok, you can kind of go 0 to 100 really fast. At least you could back then. I think you still can. So yeah, it kind of just, it all worked out. It was all a perfect storm of circumstances for me.
You'll need to give me some advice on YouTube. I'm nearing in on 5,000 followers on my YouTube channel. That launched,
there?
Well, I mean, I launched last week, so it's not terrible. Which I'm happy about this. Yeah, Tim the Spit says, my question for Bran is, when did you join the Titans coaching staff? I mean, you kind of got a Brian Daboll thing going there, Bran. What's
yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
If they want to bring me in, I'm happy to call some plays. I can't promise that it'll be anything other than Gunnar Helm seam routes, but I'm happy to do that.
I'm very excited about Gunnar Helm this year, actually. I think, and I sneakily think Wan'Dale Robinson, I think Cam Ward's gonna be better. I think he's like, anyway, I just like, nowhere to go but up, I think, for Cam Ward and the Titans offense. But so we know how you sort of started, you grind out content. You made it sound a lot easier than I think it actually is, Brandon, which I appreciate, but you're right about the ability, like it's not just about that you were putting out good content, but you were putting out good content consistently that obviously, struck a chord with a bunch of different people. And you mentioned, you're good at editing. I'm not good at editing. I'm not good at editing my written work. I'm not good at editing, anything, honestly. So hats off to you. But the other thing, so we know how you kind of blew up on social media, and you still are. Everyone follow him at BenchwarmerBran, although I think everyone already is following you. But tell me a little bit about your fantasy bona fides, because when you and I met for the first time, I knew about your skits. I had watched you. I follow you on all social media platforms, but I didn't realize that you're a fucking degenerate when it comes to fantasy football.
Yeah, I am. I've been playing it since 2010, I think was my first season at that point. So, I'm 13 or 14 at that point. Can't do math. I think fantasy football really is what like projected or propelled me into this career path, because that's what made me fall in love with just the NFL as a whole. I was just a Patriots fan when I first got into things. Didn't know anything about the rest of the league. And then my eyes get open to this thing called fantasy football. My first ever pick is Andre Johnson in a random ESPN public league. I go on to actually win that league. Not that winning public leagues is probably that hard, because I'm sure half the owners at that point, I don't remember this far back, but were probably inactive by week 6. But, that said, I'm like, that season went worse. Maybe I wouldn't have fallen in love with it as much. But I had so much fun with it that I was like, I fell in love with the NFL. And that really, if nothing else was going to, like, that really pushed me into the sports media space here, and like being like, I know this is what I want to do for a job. I know I want to turn what I like into something I can do for work. And yeah, it's been fantasy football, addiction for the last 16 years or so.
Yeah, Tim Sharpley says, unfiltered independent Barry, gotta love it. Yeah, I just dropped an F-bomb. I didn't mean to, but you know what? And I don't care about cursing. I curse a lot in my personal life, candidly. But I remember last year, on my old show or whatever, on this show previously, we would talk about our league. We call it the League of A-Holes. And as a SEC man says, that should be a fantasy team name. Absolutely. The effing degenerates. But, and I got a couple of emails or DMs from fathers who said, I listened to the show with my kids in the car. And, when you say like a-hole or whatever, and so whatever, it's a small thing, but I don't know. I'm not going to suddenly go hard cursing, but it will slip out occasionally, because yes, I do.
Happy hour after dark, unfiltered, uncensored.
That's right. I may or may not be wearing pants, Brandon. Just leave it at that.
My regular podcast co-host says that literally every show, and the more disturbing part of that is that he's usually seated right next to me, and so I'm like, you're wearing pants, and stop trying to suggest that you're not. But yes, very common sentiment.
Wow. So we've found the audience for Bald Bran.
Oh yeah.
It's your buddy that you host brand coverage with. How many leagues are you in right now?
I'm starting to lose track. There's too many dynasty leagues. I think for this upcoming season, I'm set to be between dynasty and redraft leagues in probably 8 or 9 leagues, I think.
That is a lot. I think I'm closing in on 30.
Yeah.
We got to get you into we got to get you into a guillotine league. Medici. Oh, Jonathan Medici back. Good to see you, Medici. 50-50 that Barry's wearing pants right now. The real unfiltered Barry. Absolutely. Producer Damien demanded it as in his rider when he came over from NBC. He's like, no pants, brother. And I said, I got you, Big D. All right. We got to get you into a guillotine league. It's up, it's back, it's free. The app is so much better than it was last year. The website, guillotineleagues.com. Join a league, join it for free. If you're in a league, if you're in a state where you can do a real money gaming, where you can, play for money on guillotine leagues, we're not taking any fee. So everything that you enter goes into the prize pool. It's, a lot of sites, basically, they take a fee off the top. So you're not playing for the entire prize pool. At Guillotine Leagues, that's not the case with us. No fee off the top at the moment. All right. We are now to the subject today, BenchwarmerBran, is breakout candidates. And let's define, before we get into it, let's define what a breakout candidate is. These are not unknowns. These are not like deep sleepers. These are known quantities. But these are players that we think take the next step, whatever that is. If it's a wide receiver 2, we think they become a wide receiver 1. If it's a rookie, we think they immediately become, higher, a round higher than their ADP. Or they, if they're being drafted as an RB2, we think they become an RB1, et cetera, et cetera. Somebody that breaks out, that gets to a different level, that gets into another tier, if you will, right? And so I want to start with you, and you've got a rookie running back as your first choice.
Yeah, I do. It's a guy that the situation feels just so gross, but you just got to close your eyes, pinch your nose, and dive in, and it's Jeremiah Love.
I've said that to my wife all the time, by the way, just so you know.
I'm sure more than she'd like to have heard it.
1,000%. Honey, pinch your nose, close your eyes, and just dive in. I understand it's gross, but you just got to get in there and trust the process.
Right. Yeah. You got to get to the end, and I promise it'll all be okay. No.
Right. And that's how you feel about Jeremiah Love.
Exactly.
Speaking of Love.
Exactly. I'm taking this as being the rookie Genty and Bijan kind of discount. I think people are really cold on Jeremiah Love. And look, I get it. The Cardinal situation is awful. Their line looks terrible. They have a bunch of actually decent looking pass catchers that, make it where you're worried that Love's not going to get like this Devon Achane type of target share either. And they bring in Tyler Algier in the offseason, and James Conner is still alive against all odds. But at the end of the day,
cut to James Conner.
Running backs.
Well, I'm
sorry. I'm sorry. I love James Conner, but it's over. Let's give it up. At the end of the day, these are the facts. Is that
also things I've said to my wife? It's over. Let's give it up. Come on.
Let's give it up. It's over. Also things you should say to your hair and join me.
Yeah.
These are the facts. Every running back drafted top 10 in the NFL draft since 2010 has finished as an RB1 their rookie year. That includes Ashton Genty last year, as gross as it felt. That includes Bijan Robinson in the height of the Arthur Smith lunacy, Saquon Barkley, Leonard Fournette, Christian McCaffrey. It even includes Trent Richardson. The last time this didn't come true was CJ Spiller in, I believe it was 2009. So like all the odds say that it's going to happen. When teams spend this high of a pick on a running back, like it says that they're probably going to use him quite a bit. And although the Cardinals GM is a little bit, I think, delusional, he says their goal is to make the playoffs this year. This isn't a team that's like just totally saying we're out. Like we're not even going to try. Obviously, no team's going to say that, but like this is a team. I feel like people are thinking the Cardinals are just going to fast forward to next season. Like jobs can still be on the line if things go terrible. They're going to want to get their best player out there. I just think Jeremiah Love, the fact he's going in the third round with his historical floor based on these other rookie RB1s being, basically floor of RB11, like what Genty did last year. You wouldn't have been that disappointed with Genty if you got him in the third round last year. You were only disappointed because you took him in the first. So I think you just kind of gotta grit your teeth and take him where he's going.
I think that's actually a great point. I think that's the best point you make there right there, because I mean, look, we know the workload. I mean, here's a different stat that says the exact same thing you did, right? Which is since 2012, 5 of the 8 running backs drafted inside the top 10 finished top 7 in fantasy points per game. Again, you're saying the same thing. It's just a slightly different stat, but it says the same thing, which is basically, hey, when you have that kind of high-level draft capital, you're going to get the rock a lot, and you're going to ultimately probably produce fantasy points. Brandon Garrett says, by the way, he's asking Kyron Williams or Jeremiah Love. Who do you prefer?
Oh boy, I do prefer Jeremiah Love there. I think it would have been a little different if it was like last year and we were still able to bank on, Blake Corum not eating into that work as much. I think Corum's coming along, so I will take Jeremiah Love just mainly for the pass catching chops and the fact that I do think they're going to use him just a lot. I think Jeremiah Love probably has more touches than Kyron by the end of the year.
Yeah, it's a tough one here. I'm trying to. I don't have my ranks memorized, so I'm trying to figure out exactly where I have Kyron Williams here. I'm having troubles with my internet, so I'm trying to pull up my ranks because what'll happen is I'll say like, oh, I've got this guy at 17, and then I look and I'm like, oh, actually, I forgot.
Like, no, actually, I do not
have him. I think I will say this so I have Jeremiah Love at 13. I'm right there with you in consensus. He's going as 13. I'm at running back 13. I'm at 25 overall. His ADP is 25. But I do agree with you. I have him above Kyron Williams. I have Kyron Williams at 15. So I didn't know how far below I had him, but I'm 2 spots below. So I think we're in the same area there as well. One thing I have said but to your point, I think the cost, the fact that you can get him for a mid-third rounder versus where, the reason you were upset about Ashton Genty last year, of course, is the cost. So I think the third round discount here for Jeremiah Love, I think he's priced appropriately, and he's going as an RB2. I'm at RB13, but he certainly has RB1 upside. If we think this offense under LaFleur is going to be better. They scored points last year. It was all in junk time, but they did score points last year. There is talent on that offense, whether it's Jacoby Brissett or we saw future Hall of Famer Carson Beck, obviously, just looking ridiculous against the Panthers. But
starting there and finishing there, Hall of Fame, baby.
There you go, exactly. Jokes aside about Carson Beck, you're like, okay, good. Okay, so this offense is going to be in competent hands, whoever's under center. And so, I think they're in a very tough division. The defense isn't great, but they should be competitive enough that they can move the ball in scoring position as well. Medici says, I think Price ends the season higher than Love for best rookie RB. I disagree with that, Jonathan Medici, because we keep hearing reports that Zach Charbonnet is healthier than we think. I don't think he's there for week 1, but the idea that Charbonnet might not be on, we might not see him till week 10 or whatever, it seems like that's out the window. Brandon, I want to move over to my first breakout candidate here. And look, I'm never wrong. I'm just early. Everyone knows this. Never wrong, just early. Omarion Hampton, last year's ride or die. Maybe this year's ride or die. Do I double down? We'll see. That's coming up here soon. But you just think about the offensive line. Again, last year their offensive line was just completely decimated. So those guys are back healthy. Biadaz, who was with my Commanders, Cole Strange, Alec Ingold. They signed Charlie Kohler, who's a great blocking tight end. The offensive line should be a lot stronger. Omarion Hampton should be healthier. And Mike McDaniel, as the new offense coordinator, I believe, is one of the best, if not the best, run game coordinator in the league. And he made rounds yesterday. I don't know if you saw the clip on social where somebody asked him, Omarion Hampton, could he be an RB1? And he's like, that sounds like a fantasy question. Mike McDaniel press conferences for the win, by the way. He's always great. But, he sort of set the community ablaze a little bit where he's just like, you'll see some Keaton Mitchell. You'll see some, you'll see some Keaton Mitchell. You'll see some Kamani Vidal. And everyone's just like, so much for the, I think that's candidly insane. The truth of the matter is that Keaton Mitchell is not somebody that ever is going to get a massive workload. Right? He's just not. He's not going to get a big workload. He's not built that way. He's never had a big workload. Kamani Vidal was a guy that was on practice squads. Omarion Hampton is a first-round talent. Stuntman Chuck says never trust a Charger. I get it, Stuntman Chuck, but I'm in on Omarion Hampton. I am again. So I think he has breakout potential here to be the guy that I thought he was going to be last year with a ride or die, given the offense, the coordinator, and the talent here. Mitchell and Vidal will get enough, but I think that quote from McDaniel may keep his ADP a little bit lower. Maybe people worried that he's going to be more of a committee. He's not going to be in a committee. I'm not worried about it. Omarion Hampton's going to touch the ball 17 to 20 times a game. He's going to be just plenty. McDaniel, I remember in Miami, it was just like, oh, yeah, we want to use Ollie Gordon. And stop it.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Like, we're going to have 4 co-starters at running back, and then it was just Devon Achane and Raheem Mostert, to his credit, while he was still doing his thing. But, they can – it's not going to be 3 guys. There's no way.
No, exactly. So Omarion Hampton is my choice for Breakout. So I know that you're a Patriots fan. I know that you're a homer. I know that you went to UConn, right?
I did.
So yeah, I went to Syracuse, but my wife went to UConn, so I can't hate on UConn too much.
No.
I married.
You married up. Good for you. Much smarter.
If you've ever seen a picture of my wife, you have no idea how much I married up. It's unbelievable.
Same, brother. Same.
Massively outkicked my coverage. I've met your wife, and I would agree with you. By the way.
Yeah.
There's no doubt you are. You and I are both well outkicked our coverage. But you're a Patriots fan. But is that why you're picking AJ Brown? Is this hope springs eternal?
No, this isn't strictly a fandom-based thing. This is the fit is just too perfect kind of thing. And I know predicting A.J. Brown to break out when he's had multiple wide receiver 1 seasons in the past might not be the boldest of takes, but I think he's getting back to those days of like wide receiver 7, wide receiver 5 that he had, and getting out of this, semi-purgatory of like wide receiver 14, wide receiver 18. I think the situation's gotten to a point where like people are almost bored or like desensitized by the fact that AJ Brown is on the Patriots, because we heard about this trade that we knew was going to happen like 2 months before it happened. And then it happened. And now there's really been no like buzz or developments about it since, because why would there be? But to me, it's like, I know we're all waiting for, and we're chomping at the bit for news as we approach, actual fantasy draft season here, and like Labor Day weekend and drafts really heat up. But it's like, don't be bored of a situation that is just so obviously going to work. Like, this is a guy that had to he decided to force his way out of Philly specifically because he didn't like how he was being used. He didn't think, it's, I guess, a little bit of speculation here, but he didn't think his quarterback was good enough to get him the ball consistently. Like, the passing just wasn't good enough. And this is the solution to fix that. Like, he's going to this team because he's like, hey, I want more targets. I want a better quarterback. And the Patriots are like, yeah, we can do that for you. And now he's here. And the absolute worst case scenario for me to him is like, if he has lost a step, he's still going to be used in the red zone like crazy because he's huge. He's a huge body. So even if he's not putting up 150 yards every week, like, I just think it's too perfect of a fit. It makes too much sense.
Yeah, by the way, breaking news from the chat, eWinky310 says, no surprise, Vikings named Kyler the starter officially. So speaking of upgrades at quarterback, I don't know that there's anything to really break down here real quickly on Kyler, only that, because we've all assumed this. Anyone that watched a down of football last year, or candidly talked to any member of the Vikings staff at the Combine, were like, I don't know who our starting quarterback is this year, but I just know it's not J.J. McCarthy. Like, they were not enamored with J.J. McCarthy. They actively went out and got a starting quarterback, and they talked about it at the Combine how they're like, we want a veteran. We don't want just some sort of like, we don't want Carson Wentz type, that we want somebody that's truly going to threaten and make J.J. McCarthy go, oh, they're for real. And so Kyler Murray, I think all the rankings have baked in the idea that Kyler Murray is going to start for the Vikings. Back to A.J. Brown real quickly here, Bran. Look, I'm with you. Targets are earned, right? This is one of the things we talk about all the time in fantasy football. Targets are earned, right? And so for 4 straight years, he's had at least a 28% target share. He's had 6 straight seasons above 25%. He's the best wide receiver on the Patriots, and he does have the proverbial chip on his shoulder, to your point. I want to prove to everyone that I'm not the malcontent that's reading a book on the sideline. I wasn't the problem in Philadelphia. It was Jalen Hurts. So I'm going to go there. I'm going to be on best behavior. This is a prove-it year for him. And obviously you think about Drake May, who had such a monstrous year last year with wide receivers that were not nearly as good as A.J. Brown. So Jay Woogie says, I would take A.J. Brown for the right value. What is that, though? I mean, I'll tell you that I have him at wide receiver 8. I have him at 21. So I have him as as a late second rounder. I have him as a top 10 wide receiver here, Bran. I don't know if you do ranks or where you personally have him, but are you comfortable with him at the end of the second round? If you go running back in the first round, are you comfortable with him as your number 1 wide receiver heading into a draft?
Yeah, 100%. I have more mental rankings than anything else from doing mock drafts and such. But yeah, he's a guy that I've regularly kind of penciled in my head as like mid second round. And I don't hate it if you take him anywhere near like, the or even the early second round. Like this is a guy that has as much wide receiver like one overall potential as anybody going outside of that top, three or four, those truly elite, younger, more toward their prime receivers. Yeah, I have absolutely no problem with that.
By the way, last year, where they had Stephon Diggs on part-time and, they're Kayshon Boutte and Pop Douglas and whatever, Patriots were still 8th in total wide receiver fantasy points. So even with a group of guys that were not nearly as good as A.J. Brown has been throughout his career, they were still putting up massive fantasy points. All right, so this guy's on the short list of ride or die. He's one of, quote, my guys. And I'll just say this. I know a lot of people are starting to get on the bandwagon here, but I've been early, and that's DeVonta Smith. I am at 27 overall. ADP has him at 35 overall. So I'm fairly ahead on in terms of the consensus ranks. I have him 2 spots ahead of consensus ranks as well. Look, I talked about this at the Combine. If you go back and look at my 35 most interesting things I heard at the NFL Combine in 2026, I wrote that for NBC. I talked to a couple of different team sources who said, and this quote's has gone around now for a little bit, but what I heard was that the Eagles felt like, and AJ Brown was still on the team, by the way, at this time, but they basically felt like if DeVonta Smith could ever get that kind of target share, if AJ Smith could ever get a Jackson Smith and Jigba type target share, he could have that kind of season. They felt as good as he's been, the Slim Reaper still had another gear to go, that he could ultimately be that kind of guy. In each of the past 5 seasons, here's the entire list of wide receivers to average at least 8.5 yards per target in each of the last 5 seasons. You ready for it? Here's the entire list. DeVonta Smith. That's it. That's the list. Since 2023, he's been targeted on 29% of his routes with A.J. Brown off the field. Oh, guess what? A.J. Brown going to be off the field this year. So I just feel like in the games where he's seen at least a 25% target share, which he should get to, DeVonta Smith averages over 17 fantasy points per game. New offense coordinator, former NFL quarterback Sean Mannion. What's a former NFL quarterback going to do? Hand the ball off? Absolutely not. So the Eagles are going to be more pass-heavy than they were. They've been the run-heaviest team in the NFL the last couple of years. So even if they're still like just bottom third in run rate as opposed to dead last, that'll be a significant improvement, especially with A.J. Brown off the field. I think DeVonta Smith has a monster year, and being the number 1 wide receiver in fantasy football is not outside the realm of possibility. I'm not saying it's likely. I mean, obviously you got Puka and you got JSN and you got CeeDee Lamb, you got Jamar Chase, you got all the guys at the top. But there's a non-zero chance that DeVonta Smith has that kind of year. There's a non-zero chance. And so where he's going, give me all the DeVonta Smith.
Yeah, I like it. I think that's another one that it almost feels like it's too obvious and people are like getting bored of it because it's like A.J. Brown left and DeVonta Smith, this former Heisman winning wide receiver, is just going to be their new wide receiver 1. And, people are too enamored with like, is Emeka Egbuka really that guy? Is Ladd McConkey going to bounce back with Mike McDaniel there now? And it's just like DeVonta Smith sitting here, obviously being drafted a little bit higher than some of those guys, but is just clearly going to be really good this year. And I don't think it's that hard of a conclusion to get to.
Ved, the FFHH regular, says, do you think DeVonta will go much higher than current ADP by the time we get closer to the start of the tournament? I do, actually. I certainly do. I know what you mean. I feel like people feel like it's too obvious, so they're just sort of like passing on, and he just doesn't look like the prototypical wide receiver 1. He's a smaller guy, again, Slim Reaper, but people forget, like, coming out of college, coming out of Alabama, Roll Tide, he was a generational prospect. So anyway, DeVonta Smith to the moon. Speaking of guys coming out of college and looking like great prospects, you've got a Tennessee Titan,
I do.
Brian Daboll lookalike.
Yeah, I'm calling all the plays for him.
Yeah, exactly. Carnell Tate.
Yeah, Carnell Tate, I think it's another one. I guess I'm just the rookie guy today. I think similar to like Jeremiah Love being discounted because of what Genti did last year and to a lesser degree what Bijan did on your first round return value his rookie year. I think Tate's being really discounted just because people are burnt out by Marvin Harrison Jr., and to a slightly lesser degree, Travis Hunter. Obviously wasn't being drafted quite as high in fantasy drafts last year because of the uncertainty. But just in terms of these guys being drafted really highly in the NFL draft, normally those are guys that you would think or have like high confidence are going to produce. And neither Travis Hunter or Marvin Harrison Jr. did that. I think we're going too far the opposite direction now of not just trusting guys who are stepping into a situation where they're clearly just going to have a giant target share. I mean, I think this is one of the better situations for fantasy production than we've seen in recent years for a lot of rookie receivers, because a lot of rookie receivers come in and just have absolute trash at quarterback. Like Drake London's rookie year, he was coming in with Marcus Mariota. Garrett Wilson's rookie year, he came in with Zach Wilson. Like Cam Ward, do I know that he's that good? No, but is there a promise there at least?
All right, for those of you on the YouTube stream, thanks for sticking with us. Some technical difficulties, as you saw, but we are back. And the thing about Carnell Tate is, Bran, you mentioned, the thing with Jeremiah Love. Same sort of thing, right? The last 9 wide receivers to be drafted inside the top 10, meaning in the NFL draft, all saw at least 100 targets as a rookie, right? And so, we're seeing the one-handed catches in practice. We're seeing all the footage, but the fact is like, really talented kid. And for all the Brian Daboll jokes, I think jury's still out as to whether or not he's a good head coach. I think he sort of got screwed a little in New York. I think he's a good play caller. We've seen Wan'Dale Robinson and Malik Neighbors have big fantasy seasons under Daboll. And so I think this is going to be an aggressive offense in terms of passing the ball. I think Cam Ward, in terms of if you think about stylistically, he's aggressive throwing the ball down the field. And so you'll have Gunnar Helm and Wan'Dale Robinson underneath, but Carnell Tate is going to be the guy they're chucking it deep to. I'm not really worried about, we'll see some Shamari DK, and I'm sure they've got to give some snaps to Calvin Ridley, but ultimately, I think Carnell Tate, to your point, going in the 7th round, interesting flyer there. So you go from a rookie wide receiver, I'm going to a second-year tight end, and again, breakout. Look, Colston Loveland is my tight end 3. I think he's the consensus tight end 3 across the industry. So the reason I have him in the breakout is that I think he is much closer to the Brock Bowers, Trey McBride tier than he is to the tier below him, to the Tyler Warrens and the Laportas and those guys, Kyle Pitts, what have you. Like I think I think you could easily argue that Colston Loveland belongs in that tier. He's third in that tier, but he's in that tight end 1 tier. Over his final 10 games, he had a 90 utilization score. That's a metric that Dwayne McFarland at FantasyLife.com came up with, proprietary metric that takes all of the usage and production as it relates into fantasy points, puts in an easy understand number on a 1 to 100 list. His utilization score 90, unbelievable. That would have been second among tight ends last season. Final 5 games, including the playoffs, he got 9 red zone targets, 4 different end zone targets in that stretch. And in 4 of the 5 games in which he had at least a 20% target share, he had at least 90 receiving yards. No DJ Moore there. Seems like they finally took the reins off and said, okay, Cole Kmet, thanks for your service, but this is the Colston Loveland show. Remember, this was Ben Johnson's first draft pick. He got to the Bears, and the very first guy, he threw his hat down and said, this is the guy I want, is Colston Loveland. So to the moon for Colston Loveland. You see it there on your screen. Like, I'm at 38 overall. He's going at, after pick 42. Everyone has him at tight end 3, but I like him more in the overall than I think the consensus does as well. Don't know if you had any thoughts on Colston Loveland. Crypto I'm says Loveland is his ride or die. Colston Loveland on the short list for ride or die as well.
Yeah, I'm with you. I have a little bit of PTSD going for a year 2 tight end after my Kyle Pitts escapade back in his year 2. But I will grant you that Ben Johnson is not Arthur Smith and Caleb Williams is not whatever they had at quarterback. So no, I do like Colston Loveland quite a bit. Just pulling the trigger on a tight end at that point in the draft still gives me the heebie-jeebies. But I might consider it for.
What's
Colston
that look
Loveland.
like if you get the heebie-jeebies?
It's a little bit of like kind of a Caleb thing, but like scared. It's like.
Right, but you need fingernail polish. Brandon, I'd like to. Martin's World says, does Luther Burden's injury inflate Loveland's value? Maybe a little bit, but I don't think. I mean, we talked about this yesterday on the show with JJ Zacharias, in which I encourage you to listen to. It's available on our YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe. Is that what the kids say, Brandon? Please like and subscribe.
Yeah, as far as I know, there's no new lingo for that. It's still that, yeah.
Okay. And Brandon Garrett says, I like Warren more than Loveland, and it's because of the hair. I get it. And Colts lost Pittman. There is that, too. I think Tyler Warren's going to have a very good year, but I'm at 4. I just think Loveland has more touchdown upside, and I prefer his quarterback, and I prefer the offensive system in Chicago to the one in Indianapolis. But what I was going to say is, in terms of the Burden, we talked about this yesterday. Burden is expected to be back for week number 1. And I don't know that if Burden were to miss a week, all of a sudden, Loveland gets a bigger target share. So, I mean, he's going at tight end 3. I don't know how higher you can get him because you're not taking him ahead of Bowers or Trey McBride. It is time now. I want to play a game with you. Is this okay, Brandon? I want to play a game called F, Marry, Chill, where the F stands for friend, to be clear. It's a PG version of F, Marry, Chill. And so friend, marry, chill. So I want you to F, marry, chill. The F stands for friend. These second-year running backs. Quinshon Judkins, Travion Henderson, Bayshal Tootin. They're all going right around the same area in terms of ADP. So F, marry, chill. Second-year running backs, Judkins, Henderson, and Bayshal Tootin.
Well, first, I appreciate that we're censoring the second half of the show, but the first half was the Wild West. I think the F for friend, of course. I'll go with Bayshal Tootin for that. I think, guy that I'm interested in. I like his talent. Just still a little weary on how that's all going to shake out in Jacksonville. I don't know how much work he's going to get, but I want to take the shot on him just in case he is that next big breakout thing. I'm going to marry Quinshon Judkins. I really don't want to marry a Cleveland Brown, but when it comes to fantasy football this year and you're constructing a team and you look at these 3 guys and you look at who's going to get the most work, it's just definitely Quinshon Judkins. And to me, roster building, I feel better about that where he's going in drafts. Because if I'm drafting Judkins, it's probably because I went pretty heavy wide receiver early or even took a Brock Bowers early or maybe a Josh Allen. I just want a guy who's going to touch the ball a lot and give me a decent floor of points, even though he's on the Cleveland Browns. And then I'm going to chill on my guy, Travion Henderson. Very glad that he's on the New England Patriots, but for fantasy value, I just think people are way overestimating his even chance to overtake Ramondre Stevenson in this backfield. To me, Ramondre is so much more set in what he's going to do for this offense than even what Chris Rodriguez is going to do for the Jaguars. Chris Rodriguez could get passed up by Bayshal Tootin, and I wouldn't be surprised. Travion's not going to just pass up Ramondre, not with how much trust Mike Vrabel has in him.
Yeah, no, listen, I agree with everything you just said. So I agree with you with Mary being the best. I'm marrying Quinshon Judkins, to your point. He's got the best shot at double-digit touchdowns of everyone on this list, in my opinion. Just because I think the Browns offense, I don't think the Browns offense is going to be amazing, but I don't think they're going to be as much of a train wreck as people think. I'm a believer in Todd Monken, and whoever wins the quarterback will be fine. And, again, I like the wide receivers they drafted. They'll be fine. So Judkins will be in scoring position more often. You mentioned I'm going to friend Tootin because there's upside there, but we're hearing a little bit too much of Chris Rodriguez out of camp, and then I'm with you on Travion Henderson. We talked about him yesterday with JJ as well in terms of Ramondre Stevenson. All right, F. Mary Chill, aging tight ends. George Kittle, friend of the podcast, George Kittle, Travis Kelce, and Mark Andrews. Who are you going to F? Who are you going to marry? Who are you going to chill among these veteran tight ends?
Yeah, the unk tight ends, if you will.
Yep.
I think Mark Andrews is only like 29 or something, which is ridiculous.
Also, friend of the podcast,
said,
Mark Andrews, by the way. Yep.
Well, very appropriate then, because I'm going to friend Mark Andrews. I think
right.
his red zone role and just how much trust Lamar Jackson has in him, especially with some optimism that the offense might transform a little bit or take a new shape here with Declan Doyle there. I like Mark Andrews as like a speculative older tight end that can still provide you like a pretty good floor of fantasy points. So I'm gonna friend Mark Andrews. I'm gonna marry George Kittle. The Achilles thing is scary, obviously, but George Kittle is also scary. That's a scary man. That's a very freaky, scary man. I think he's gonna bounce back nicely, even if the season starts a little bit slow. I think he's got a couple years left of that really just elite dog production as long as the substation doesn't strike him down from above. And then I'm going to chill on Travis Kelce. That man, talk about aging tight ends. That man, he's aged. There's no more aging going on. He's aged. I'm good on Kelce.
Giving him aged.
Yeah. He's
no
just he looks like dust. He kind of got that like middle of the field option route role, yoinked from him by Rashee Rice just by virtue of Rice having more juice. And I think he still has more juice than Kelce, even with the surgery and all that or injury. But yeah, from what I just saw from Travis Kelce, he's just too old, man. I don't want that in my lineup. It's too old.
Well, we disagree here as Craig Ainer 1565 says, get in a marriage throuple with Kelce. Absolutely. Listen, if Travis Kelce is good enough to be married to Taylor Swift, he's good enough to get married to me. So I'm going to marry Travis Kelce. Last year here, I'm a big believer in the Chiefs having a bounce back year. You mentioned Rashee Rice earlier in the show. Last week we had Dan Graziano, who was at Chiefs camp, who said they're using Xavier Worthy a lot. But candidly, I think that Travis Kelce, because of the familiarity, he's not going to go out. He's not going to go out, with a limp. He's not going to go out with a whimper or limping out, should I say. Big year off of the marriage. Travis Kelce, it's all narrative based, but the truth is that if you look at the underlying metrics, it was fine. He's not Kelce of old, but I think there's still some positivity there. Meanwhile, I'm very nervous about the Achilles. Even if he comes back, we've seen players lose their explosiveness. So I will friend George Kittle, friend of the podcast. I'm going to chill on Mark Andrews. I'm nervous about this guy. We were all we couldn't understand why they re-signed him. We don't know what this offense is going to look like under Declan Doyle. He's really touchdown dependent. And Brian Hickman saying to you, Brandon, are you saying you'll never, ever, ever get back together with Travis Kelce?
That is absolutely what I'm saying, yes. I have a blonde wig in the other room I could go get to really make the point, but it would take me a little time.
Yeah, I appreciate that you have that. Well done, Brian Hickman. I've got a blank space, and I'm going to write your name. All right, F. Mary Chill. I'm just nervous about Andrews. He's my tight end 14. Okay. Fantasy punishments here, okay? Which I want you to F. Mary Chill these fantasy punishments. 18 holes without a ball. I don't know if you saw that. Somebody had to play a full 18 holes of golf without a ball. That was truly brilliant, and pretty much every social account played it. Dinner with a blow-up doll. I've seen people, they have to take a blow-up doll out on a date, and not say why you're doing it. You just act like it's normal. And then retake the SAT. So F. Mary Chill those fantasy punishments.
Yeah, I'm gonna take this from the approach of if I had to do them. So 18 holes without a ball, that's a really funny bit for the first hole or two.
Right.
After that, you have to keep doing that for 16, 17 more holes, and it's just this isn't even funny anymore, and you know that, but you have to keep doing it because that's the punishment. And the group you're playing with is going to think you're an absolute lunatic. So it's a tough one to place.
Do you think do you think he constantly went to the fairway, or do you think he like a couple of times he was just like in the rough, that he hit his imaginary ball into the rough?
If I'm playing pretend golf, Matthew, I'm hitting the perfect shot every time because I got to get something out of this, right? So I think I'm gonna
no sand traps for Brandon.
No, I'm too much in there regularly, and I probably will be later today. I'm gonna friend that one because I think it's funny and it's unique, and it would be a good time for at least a little bit, and other people will get a kick out of it. I'm gonna marry the retake the SAT. That is a classic punishment. That's honestly one that like it's gonna take up some of your time, but you'll get over it. Like it's not really that big a detriment to you. And I was a pretty good test taker back in the day, so let's see if I can beat my own high score. Yeah. I think the SAT's changed a little bit since then. And then I'm not going on a date with a blow up doll. I don't want to do that.
Yeah, I'm chilling on that well as well. I think you have it ranked correctly. Chill the blow up doll, says Crypto Kev XRP. It's Shrubs on Sports says, like if you're playing fake golf, isn't it 18 holes in one? Didn't you?
It could be, I guess. I mean, par 5, that's kind of hard to justify. I might play it a little bit more realistically than that. But on the par 3s, hole in one.
I think I might rather retake the SAT. Just I think it's quicker. You know what I mean? Like because all these are about embarrassment. Right, so like if you take the SAT, you just walk in there and whatever. It's like a couple hours, and it sucks. But you're there, and you could just quickly. You don't care about your SAT, so I'm going to fill in A for every single answer, and then I'm done. Brian Hickman with a Caddyshack reference. It's in the whole Cinderella story. But meanwhile, if you're having to play golf with an imaginary ball or go on a date with a blow up doll, like everyone's staring at you like, what the hell, dude? So. As Valiant Vincent says, it's easy to retake the SAT.
I think there should be a minimum score requirement on the SAT one, though. You need to get at least like a bad score, but like something that shows that you actually tried it and you didn't just mark off things to get it over with. That adds to the punishment to me.
That adds to the punishment. That's right. I saw another one the other day on social media, which I thought was pretty good. I've normally. I've been doing this for so long, and my book Fantasy Life, which came out in 2013, was the first. It was all had nothing but fantasy punishments in it throughout the book. We had a bunch of them, and I met these guys that where the loser of the league had to get a permanent tattoo chosen by the winner of the league, and sort of made them famous, helped them blow up. And so ever since that book, I feel like fantasy punishments have become a thing. And by the way. Matt Dennis asks, why does Bran have a blonde wig in the next room? That is a good question for you.
Oh, buddy, you must be new here because that is not the only wig I have in the next room. So let me tell you, familiarize yourself with my page a little bit, and it will become clear very quickly.
At any rate, so like at this point, my point of me telling that story about the book was at this point, I feel like I've seen them all. Like it's rare. It's hard for me to see something in the world of fantasy punishments where I'm like, oh, that's new. I mean, I've sort of seen versions of it all. Playing 18 holes of golf without a ball, that was a new one for me. I thought that was pretty good. And then I saw one the other day that was a twist on, a lot of times like you have to eat 24 hours in a Waffle House or 24 hours in a restaurant and you get points off for, you get time off for how many eggs or hash browns or whatever it is you eat, pancakes. But this one was bowling, and he had to spend like something like 8 hours in the bowling alley, and it's just like for every strike he got 15 minutes off the time, but for every gutter ball I think they added 5 minutes to the time, and so it was I thought that was pretty good. I thought that one was pretty good. All right, Brandon, F. Mary Chill Odyssey inspired team names: the Trojan Hertz, Tua Lekmacus, or Kyle Pitsidian. Poseidon?
Poseidon?
Yeah. Sorry, Kyle Poseidon. Yeah. I have not yet found 8 hours in my day to go see Odyssey.
But I did go see it. It was not my choice. It was a group outing that they were like, hey, we're going to see this movie. I'm like, all right, cool. I didn't even know the story, Matthew. That's how uncultured I am to just the story of the Odyssey and all that. I know it's been around for a bajillion years. Didn't know it. Went in. It was honestly, I was probably one of the only people to go in and see that with a clear mind and no expectations. As far as these names are concerned, We're chilling on the Kyle Pitts one immediately because he and I still have beef. There's no Kyle Pitts names being allowed around here. I will not stand for it. There's just no chance.
You can tell, by the way, I'm going to interrupt you here for a second. You can tell this year when you're in a draft, the people that draft, there's two types of people in the world of fantasy football. The people that have drafted Kyle Pitts before and the people that haven't. The people that haven't are the people that'll be in on Kyle Pitts this year, or anyone that only had him last year. Anyone else that's had him prior to last year is like, I can't. I know he was good last year.
Also, if you had him last year, he had like one real game. He got like 45 points in one game, and that was 25% of his points. So this guy, no more Kyle Pitts in fantasy. We're chilling on that one. I'll say let's friend the Trojan Hurts because I like the play on words. I think it could use a little bit of work. Hurts, horse, I get it, but it's all right. Tualemicus, I do enjoy. I'll marry Tualemicus.
Yeah, I might switch those just because I just feel like sometimes people, you'll name Tualemicus, right? Which is a good name, right? But it means you have to have Tua on your team. You can't call your team Tualemicus unless you have Tua on your team. And you're not drafting Tua Tagovailoa unless you're in a super flex league, super deep league. You're truly desperate, right? I mean, but
64 team league.
Right. Yeah, Jalen Hurts you will draft. People will draft Kyle Pitts. So Tua, good name, but a bit of a stretch using the the player name there. All right, last one here. F. Mary Chill, Christmas Day plans. Spending time with family, the NBA games, which includes LeBron and the Sixers at the Lakers, Miami and Boston, Spurs and Knicks, NBA Finals rematch. So really good games in the NBA, or the NFL games. Bears at Packers, Bills at Denver, Josh Allen going back there, Rams at Seattle. So F. Mary Chill, your Christmas Day plans.
Yeah, got some bad news for the family. Chill on that one. There's no family involved. They are the last priority. We're gonna marry the NFL games because obviously, and we're gonna friend the NBA games, which I think is perfect because my exposure to the NBA games on Christmas Day is probably gonna be that first hour of Spurs versus Knicks before the first football game kicks off, and then I will forget basketball exists for the rest of the day because there's football back to back. So that's my order.
Yeah, I think that's all fair. I'll probably tune in a little bit to LeBron at the Lakers. It's my team. Hey, last call. We have a minute and a half left. Very quickly, who is your offensive player of the year?
Yeah, I'm going with Jahmyr Gibbs. I feel like it's the really easy, boring pick, but you get a incredible running back with a team that just got rid of David Montgomery, has one of the easiest schedules in the league. I saw they don't play a cold outdoor game all season until week 17. So it's like I have never really seen a more perfect set of circumstances outside of, the line is still a little bit of a question. Cade Mays got hurt the other day, so there's some question there, but otherwise just perfect storm for Jahmyr Gibbs. I'll go with him.
I'm going to go with Jamar Chase, proud Fantasy Life investor Jamar Chase, who's 10-1. I'm in on the Bengals offenses here. I think everyone finally fully healthy. They improved the defense. I think this is going to be a big year for the Bengals. I know whenever you trust the Bengals, they screw you, they bone you. But I'm in on Jamar Chase having one of those years with a healthy Joe Burrow and T. Higgins opposite it. So give me Jamar Chase at 10-1. Hey, Brandon, this was awesome. We're going to follow you all on social media at BenchwarmerBran if we haven't already, and your brand coverage podcast, which comes out once a week. You and your buddy talking fantasy and some nonsense. It's always a lot of fun. Everyone go to fantasylife.com, subscribe to Fantasy Life Plus, use the promo code Barry to get a get 10% off. It's closing time, which means you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. We're back tomorrow with Adam Levitan. For BenchwarmerBran, I'm Matthew Barry. Peace out.